My reaction was one of excitement, not just because of the number of players that were interested, but also the quality of those players. Certainly to get a chance to work with our veteran players again, have such a great history of watching them excel at the highest level, and just a lot of belief in them. You know, they've come through in so many big time moments for us over the years. So to see those names on the list.
Team USA has released footage of Caitlin Clark going up against league veterans in scrimmages in Durham, North Carolina, and the clips are getting attention for obvious reasons. With the WNBA CBA still not finalized and uncertainty around when the season will officially start, Team USA basketball is moving forward regardless. Tryouts and team selection begin March 11th, and competitive basketball is back on the calendar for 2026. Caitlin Clark only played 13 games last season before everything stalled, but she's been consistently in the gym. Workout footage showed she's preparing like the season is starting tomorrow. Now, official Team USA practice clips show her competing against veteran players in structured competitive scrimmages. Before getting into the actual footage, it's worth briefly acknowledging the CBA situation. The reported sticking point is revenue sharing. Players are seeking 30%, while owners are offering 15%. That gap is significant, and it's creating uncertainty around the league's timeline. But inside Team USA camp, the focus is strictly basketball. The national team coach explained that throughout camp, they intentionally mixed different guard and forward combinations to evaluate chemistry. On the final day, they matched all the veterans on one side and all the newcomers on the other for a competitive 5-minute game. It wasn't a casual run. It was structured, intentional, and competitive. The coach made it clear what she's evaluating: players who pick things up quickly, combine well with others, impact winning, and elevate their teammates. In the released footage, Caitlin Clark stands out in exactly those areas. She isn't forcing shots or playing hero ball. She's reading defenses, threading passes, creating space, and running the offense efficiently. Coaches can be heard saying, "Good find, see?" after she locates open teammates.
What to say? Samia.
That's recognition of decision-making and court vision, not just scoring ability. There's also heavy emphasis on physicality. International basketball allows more contact, and Team USA is clearly preparing for that style. You can hear reminders during practice about playing physical. Clark has already shown in the WNBA that she can handle aggressive defensive schemes and heavy contact without her production collapsing. This footage matters because of the context surrounding her previous Olympic omission. At the time, the reasoning centered on chemistry and fit within an established veteran group. Now, with official Team USA clips showing her competing effectively against those same veterans in a controlled evaluation setting, the basketball argument becomes clearer. This isn't speculation, it's practice tape from national team camp. The timing also intersects with the broader CBA discussion. Veteran players are advocating for a larger share of league revenue, emphasizing their role in building the league. At the same time, Clark's arrival undeniably brought unprecedented mainstream attention, attendance spikes, and merchandise sales. That dynamic adds another layer to how fans interpret what they're seeing in these scrimmages. The camp also features other young talent returning to competitive play, creating a clear veterans versus newcomers dynamic. That generational crossover is compelling from a pure basketball standpoint. Ultimately, the coach's criteria remain simple: impact winning, combine well with others, make teammates better. Based on the released footage, Clark is checking those boxes in this camp environment. Roster decisions will ultimately come down to internal evaluations, but the visual evidence from these scrimmages reinforces that she belongs in the conversation at the highest international level.
Made me excited to have opportunity to coach them again. And then the newcomers excited me too. You know, these are players that some of them I've coached before as youngsters. Some of them I've watched have these amazing highs in college and even in the beginning of their WNBA careers. And there's a curiosity to see what that will look like on a national team stage as well. So yeah, every name that I saw, there was something exciting about getting the chance to work with them.
Beyond the surface-level reactions, there are a few layers to unpack from what Team USA chose to show, and just as importantly, how they chose to show it. When a national program releases practice footage, it's rarely random. Clips are selected, angles are intentional, messaging is subtle but deliberate. In this case, the camera repeatedly finds Caitlin Clark initiating offense, making reads, pushing tempo, and communicating. That alone suggests she's being evaluated seriously within the system, not treated as an outsider or temporary invite. The veterans versus newcomers setup also says a lot. Splitting the group that way creates a natural pressure test. Veterans understand international schemes, terminology, and physical standards. Newcomers are expected to adapt quickly. If a newcomer struggles in that format, it shows immediately. If they thrive, it's difficult to ignore. Clark did not look overwhelmed. She looked composed. One of the most noticeable elements in the clips is pace control. International play often becomes half-court heavy, with strong help defense and tighter spacing. In those environments, decision-making becomes more valuable than raw scoring. Clark appears comfortable manipulating defenders with ball fakes, quick changes of direction, and skip passes to weak-side shooters. Those are reads that translate. It's also worth noting how she handles defensive pressure. Veterans at this level don't gamble recklessly. They test ball handlers with body contact, angles, and timing. In the footage, Clark absorbs contact, keeps her dribble alive, and continues scanning the floor. That matters. Turnovers in FIBA play can swing games quickly. Another subtle detail, off-ball movement. When she gives the ball up, she doesn't stand still. She relocates. She shifts angles. That keeps defenses honest. In international systems where spacing is tighter and help rotations are disciplined, relocation shooting and secondary playmaking become critical skills. The communication aspect stands out too. You can see her directing traffic, pointing teammates into position, and calling out actions. That's not something you fake in a short camp. That indicates she's comfortable with terminology and structure. The coach's emphasis on combination play becomes central here. International tournaments are short. There's limited time to build chemistry. Players who naturally elevate others through passing and spacing tend to integrate faster. Clark's game has always leaned toward that connective style. There's also the transition component. In several sequences, once possession changes, she immediately pushes the ball up the floor.
Putting her foot down because some of this stuff is getting a little wild. She comes into the WNBA, her biggest life dream to play professional basketball. She comes into the WNBA. She gets a special whistle the opposite way because she's getting fouled and flagrant fouled, and just the defense that they're playing on her is actually insane. Yet despite all that, has an incredible rookie season. And then on top of that, people are using her name for their hidden agendas on both sides. People are just using Caitlin's name. And then if she says something, it's not enough. If she doesn't say anything, she never wants to speak out about anything. She cannot win no matter what she does. And then on top of that, she's being used as a pawn in all of this. Whether people are doing it or not, whether they are doing it purposely or not, Caitlin is not in the WNBA PA. She was supposedly at those meetings during WNBA All-Star, but she's not a primary, whatever it's called, on this WNBA PA committee. She's not a member. She's not at the front of that table. She's not doing the negotiations, but everybody's using her name to fit whatever agenda they want to use it for. And it's really sad. And it sucks that she's coming into the league. She plays her first season, does as well as she does, despite everything that was going on, top 3 in MVP votes. And then her second season, she tries to come back. It seems like she put on muscle so that she could handle the physicality of this league because it's just a physical league and you got to keep up, right? That was the narrative from...
Even if the break doesn't result in a layup, early offense forces defenses to scramble. That creates advantages later in the possession. Tempo control is often an under-discussed factor in international success. Defensively, while the footage primarily highlights offense, there are moments where she stays engaged in rotations. International teams punish missed rotations quickly. Being in the right spot matters as much as on-ball defense. From what's visible, she isn't disengaged. The broader narrative around her Olympic omission will naturally resurface because this is the first extended look at her within the Team USA structure since that decision. But this camp appears less about revisiting the past and more about recalibrating the future. Roster construction at this level balances multiple variables: experience in international tournaments, positional versatility, ability to adapt to officiating differences, locker room chemistry, late game execution. Clark's profile touches several of those categories. Her range stretches defenses beyond typical international comfort zones. FIBA courts are slightly shorter in three-point distance compared to some professional leagues, and deep shooters can create spacing advantages. That's a tactical element coaches factor in. Another consideration is how opponents scout. International teams prepare meticulously. A player who commands defensive attention changes scouting reports. Even if she's not the leading scorer, the gravity she creates can free others. There's also the mental component. International tournaments bring condensed schedules and high stakes. Players need emotional steadiness. In the clips, Clark's body language remains steady. No visible frustration, no over-celebration, just controlled competitiveness. The CBA situation hovering in the background adds an unusual layer. If the WNBA season experiences delays, national team activity could become one of the few structured competitive outlets for elite players in the early part of the year. That increases the importance of these camps. From a development standpoint, these scrimmages serve as evaluation labs. Coaches can experiment without the finality of tournament play. They can test whether a high-usage, collegiate-style creator adjusts to a more balanced international offense. Based on the footage, Clark appears willing to operate within structure. It's also important to acknowledge that practice dominance doesn't automatically guarantee tournament impact. Scrimmages differ from medal round intensity, but they do reveal readiness, adaptability, and basketball IQ. The generational dynamic remains compelling. Veterans bring institutional knowledge, understanding how to win internationally, how to close tight games, how to manage referees and tempo. Newcomers bring unpredictability and energy. Successful national teams often blend both. The 5-minute competitive game format intensifies that blend. Short windows magnify mistakes. There's little time to recover from poor decisions. In that setting, efficient decision-makers tend to stand out. Clark's efficiency in these clips appears rooted in simplicity. She's not over-dribbling. She's not hunting contested shots. She's reading the first available advantage and capitalizing. Another layer is adaptability to role. At a national team stacked with talent, players rarely replicate their professional usage rates. Some scorers become off-ball threats. Some primary handlers share duties. The footage suggests Clark is comfortable toggling between creator and spacer. That flexibility increases roster viability. From a strategic standpoint, spacing has become one of the most valuable commodities in modern basketball. International defenses are disciplined in the paint. A deep-range threat forces defenders to extend further than they'd prefer. That opens driving lanes in post-entry angles. In several sequences, defenders hedge aggressively on her ball screens. That respect alters defensive geometry. Even when she passes out of traps, the initial defensive shift has already created an imbalance. The coach's repeated reference to impact winning is significant. Winning impact isn't just points scored, it's possession management, shot quality creation, turnover avoidance, defensive positioning, and communication. The footage highlights multiple of those components. There's also conditioning. Early in camps, conditioning gaps often appear. Clark's pace doesn't visibly drop across clips. She maintains tempo and decision clarity. Ultimately, selection decisions will factor in closed-door scrimmages, film sessions, analytics breakdowns, and staff discussions beyond what the public sees. But from the released material alone, the case for inclusion centers on fit, skill translation, and adaptability. The narrative around rivalry or tension between veterans and newcomers may persist externally, but internally, the focus appears operational: who executes within system demands. Team USA historically prioritizes versatility and unselfish play. In these clips, Clark's strengths align with those priorities. The coming weeks will clarify roster direction. Training camp performances often evolve, adjustments are made, rotations tighten, but the initial visual evidence positions her as more than just a high-profile invitee. She looks integrated. She looks prepared. And within the controlled chaos of competitive camp scrimmages, that level of composure carries weight. What happens next will depend on consistency, continued adaptation, and how the coaching staff envisions the final rotation. But at minimum, the released footage establishes that she operates comfortably at this level of speed, physicality, and structure. From a basketball standpoint, that's the clearest takeaway.